Welcome to GuitarPoint in Frankfurt. I'm thrilled to have Peter Weihe here in the shop. The man, the myth, the legend. He recorded almost all songs that have been produced in Germany or played guitar, a lot of them. So he was the caretaker of this beautiful guitar, the 58 Les Paul Standard. That has many names. Some call it STP Burst, Ronnie Montrose, Peter Weihe Burst. He reunited with the guitar today for a couple of hours, and the first question I want to ask you, Peter, how do you feel about it?
Millions of feelings, and first it was like meeting a real old friend. It was for me familiar situation because there were many years that my roadie traveled to the studio, set up the equipment. The next day I flew over, or with the train or whatever, and I came there, everything was set up, and then I picked up my guitars. And when yesterday we had a long journey from Hamburg to Frankfurt, and when we arrived finally, it was the same situation. I saw the guitar, and it was totally familiar. I saw the neck, this neck, and how it is worn off, and the shape and everything, and the top is something I was looking at for 33 years, and endless studio sessions, like many studio sessions with 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so it feels very comfortable, and when I touch the neck, I feel just at home. 11 years later, it's still the same. So this is one very strong feeling, like meeting a very old friend.
Yeah.
And then we were very curious because Andreas Kloppmann and we tried to duplicate these pickups. Andreas builds them, and we are really trying since 2005 when I first realized that I had to let this guitar go. So we started, and we came pretty close. But after a while, talking about this guitar, and I was afraid that I might perhaps create a myth that is maybe overblown bullshit. And yesterday we arrived here and we played it, and it needed new strings, and it had a top wrap around here, so Bonamassa did that. So we changed that to the situation that I'm used to. And then when we plugged it into an amp this morning, we played one note or two notes or three notes, and both of us, we knew, okay, it's not a myth, it's there. And I showed it to you, and showed what
very
aspects
impressive.
I meant.
Right.
And it's really in this instrument, and I was almost shocked because it was stronger than what I remembered.
Okay.
Also in comparison to other bursts that we had the pleasure to play today.
Yeah, we are
also very good
to
bursts.
compare them to others.
And so this is basically the feeling, and then I realized how familiar I'm with it playing wise, that everything I want to do comes out of this guitar just because I'm conditioned to do that. I'm socialized with this Les Paul. It was the only one I had.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident that when I do this, it does produce that.
So let's go back to the late 70s. I think the guitar found you in 79.
I was looking for one.
Yeah.
And at that time, there were only few bursts coming to Germany. And so a friend of mine, the founder of a guitar shop in Hamburg called Amp Town, and later Just Music, Burkhard Bürgerhoff, he brought two bursts. At that time, I was looking for a burst because I think the prices were going up, and maybe 2 or 3 years later, I wouldn't have been able anymore to afford one. So we were looking for one. And then there were two, and there was another one, maybe, that was for sale. And so I looked at them, and this was pretty mistreated because it had these 4 marks that you can see in the old Ronnie Montrose videos.
Yeah.
And it had a wider binding on each side of the neck. So it was a real clumsy neck. And then it has jumbo frets on it. Everything that I didn't like. But it sounded so good.
Yeah.
It sounded the way I hoped a Les Paul would sound. And I wasn't so experienced. I had played an ES 335 from 61 and Strats and things, and so that was the first Les Paul. But I loved the sound, so I said, fuck it, let's take this one. 1 year later, in '80, I had a production in Nashville with the producer Tony Brown in Quad Studios. And I thought, okay, that's the chance. Let's go to George Gruen and ask them whether they can build it back to normal specs.
Okay, so Gruen did
So
that.
they removed the binding and they put original style threads on it. And still these spots were very visual. You could see them very well, distinctively. But I left it at that. And ever since, that was the guitar I played.
What's the secret? What's that certain thing that this guitar is for you?
Maybe I can describe it from a different perspective. Like when you are a guitar player and you play for yourself, and you play your favorite tunes at home or maybe on stage, you expect certain things from a guitar. At that time, I played fusion, so it had to be good for lead playing. I wanted a charismatic tone or whatever you would call that. I was looking for that one. But when you play in a studio, other people not decide, but they have their preferences, what they want. Maybe a keyboard player wants that you play his arpeggio, and he wants that one note stick out, or he doesn't want to stick any note to stick out, or whatever. Or a singer wants a certain line, and he has a certain image of a feeling of that sound, or you have a very dense playback with lots of keyboards and lots of guitars and everything and background vocals, and there's one line that has to stick out, so you have to play it. And I just played this Les Paul, and I experienced that they were always satisfied. Everything I wanted to do and they wanted to have was possible on this guitar. So I never looked for another one.
So like an extended version of your own hands.
I believe that when you get a great guitar, and you are lucky to find one, that you learn from that guitar. The same with my old Strat. It's a candy apple red Strat, and I never had another one. I never needed another one.
What year is it?
Slapboard, so it's 62.
Okay. Yeah.
This guitar did it all. I had many amps, and many other guitars, of course. So when there was a job, maybe I had to play some 8 notes, muted 8 notes, hard rock metal style. Then maybe my SG Les Paul was a better fit. But whenever I played a melody or I played background heavy chords or something like that, this was the guitar that, like a very good cello, brings out the notes that you need to be audible in playback. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I realized when it was too late, when I needed a replacement, there was none that I haven't found any other guitar that
sounded like this.
The same like this. I have a great artist proof that Gibson gave me. Thanks a lot. And we put 2 double whites in it. You saw that guitar, an old bridge and old pots, and it sounds great.
It's a great guitar.
Better than many bursts, but it doesn't have this special charisma. Beside that, on another level, what you have to do when you play in the studio, maybe somebody wants to play you a run. You have to stop on the E or on the F sharp or something, and then it has to sing and it has to sustain. You don't have the choice. When you play blues for yourself, you can decide, okay, I avoid that note, I don't like it, but this sounds always great. You can't do it in the studio.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in D flat, the whole thing, and then you have to play a run or a certain melody, and then it has to sound on that very note where you stop. And maybe for 2 bars or longer or something. And this guitar always did that. This is another aspect.
Yeah.
Or when you play rhythm, you have to, like a typical great Telecaster on the middle position, that distinctive sound, or maybe on the bridge pickup, the sound that cuts through the playback, but not with that nasty, but with the notes still audible, that you hear the voicing of the chord, but it cuts through in the playback. So you have your position, your place in the mix between the hi-hat and the snare, whatever, and you do your rhythm part, and then you want to hear that little line, maybe the upper note descending or something, and still cutting through. And you can always dial that in with this guitar. So I learned from the producers that after 20 years or something like that, I said, okay, there were hundreds of producers, or I don't know how many, and there was no situation where one said, okay, no, that's not a good Les Paul, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Through
So
all different kinds of styles.
Yeah.
But still, that's not what I was looking for in the beginning. I was looking for a great instrument that feels great and that, for my taste, has a certain charisma I want to connect with. And it still got that. This morning when we plugged it in,
situation.
my friend Andreas got goosebumps, I got goosebumps, and we both said, okay, it's still there. It wasn't something we made up or a myth that we created or something. It's there. And then we called you and listen, and you said, okay, I hear that, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And we had two other bursts.
Yeah.
And my guitar, and Andreas bought some guitars. But the great thing is that the newest version of that pickup that Andreas built, he tries very hard to incorporate that, an aspect of that charisma that you can also get it in new guitars. Much of that is the whole construction. I'm no scientist. I can't tell you, no, it can't be the wood, or it's the wood. But what I can say is, I don't care. Everything together, the whole construction, what it is now, produces that sound. But most of the other guitars don't. And we want to have a pickup that has that quality of being transparent and giving you the power of creating whatever you want. And not leaving you alone when you need a snappy treble note, like it's very fat down here, very very cello-like. But here, up there, it can have a bite and an attack, and I need that when I want to express something aggressive. Then I don't want a guitar that makes and doesn't come over a certain threshold. And this guitar has that, and we are really trying hard to create that so that you get that in normal guitars. But this is something special, I must say, after all these years.
And it took a long time to develop the pickup, right? So yeah, that's.
We started 2005. At that time, we collected all the reissues that were accessible. I asked all the dealers in North Germany, can you tell me what guitar you sold to your customers that people think these are great? And then we collected these, and I must say it was a big disappointment. It was a big disappointment.
Yeah.
There was two other bursts, and I had all gold at that time. I have a gold top, and then we realized something's wrong there. And then Andreas had his pickup test guitar. It's an old Ibanez with pickups of his, and everybody agreed that that was the closest. So that was the point when we started. It said, okay, that's a good starting point. And ever since, he's analyzing the metal of old magnets and having a company melt metal and build new ones, new magnets, and everything. And I think there's no stone unturned. But in the end, you don't have the same material anymore. You have to compare to the old things and then say, okay, I have to turn that up or down, and then it goes like a mobile. It goes up and down, and a moving target. And so you have to try to find what component does what when I change it, and how can I compensate for it. And after a while, you're getting closer and closer. And what we're doing now is, I brought a high-end studio preamp and high-end converters, and we will record this guitar also DI and through different amps, and so make a repeatable setup that we can use to compare future guitars and pickups and everything. It's important for us to see whether recording in a blind test after a while still tells you the same thing as if you see the guitar or hold it in your hand.
Right. Yeah.
There are much more spectacular looking tops, of course.
Yeah, well, but this is it's a beautiful top. It's curly and it's got
a
the right
bit
color.
Curly, But you know, there are some things like these spots were already there when Ronnie Montrose had it.
Yeah, that's history.
And then they were sort of, the holes were getting better. And then I told the guitar builder Stefan Sander in Kiel asked him whether he could help me to fix that. So he said he will not try to cover it. You shall still see that there's these few folds,
right.
but he tried to fix the boundaries. And then there's this thing. Do you see this?
Yeah.
Yes. I think the custom shop guys also tried to do that. That was a mix stand standing in front of me. Somebody loosened the screw of a mix stand, and that thing came.
So it happened to you. Yeah.
It happened to me,
Yeah.
well, many years ago.
Yeah.
So this is a typical dent that I can remember.
I mean, talking about this, is there any certain situation or special experience you've had with the guitar, a story that you want to share, whether about the guitar or with the guitar? I mean, you have many, I guess.
Do you know where the name STP burst comes from?
It's something about the...
Yes, this
sticker,
oval
right?
spot that was much bigger and much more red at that time.
So is it a sticker or is it...
It was a sticker.
Wood?
It was a sticker with STP on it.
Yeah.
And that's the reason it was called
I think
STP
it's
burst.
even before Ronnie Montrose owned
No,
it.
I think there was a picture in Guitar Player magazine with him, and a friend of mine was a very good memory. He said he saw that. Then he knew when I got it where this oval spot originated from.
Okay.
He remembered that story.
That.
Yes, a nice story was when I was in the Bavarian forest and we had a gig with our jazz rock band, and the birds were chirping and everything was very quiet, and we thought, where shall the audience come from? There was nothing in the nowhere. And I made a sound check on stage in a typical empty hall, and then I left the stage. Suddenly I sensed a resistance at my knee, and then I realized when it was too late, I jumped from the stage, that it was a cable, and following the cable was the burst coming down, crashing on the floor. Okay, I thought that was it. Cancel the gig. That was my guitar. And then I went to the guitar and looked at it, and it was perfect.
Nothing happened. That's pure magic, I guess. Maybe she didn't want to get hurt, because usually the headstock would snap or something like that. But that's you were lucky.
No, I remember the many situations where I looked at this top for 30 years in studio situations with headphones, really tired. Sometimes very lucky moments, first takes with the whole band. Like Rigo Reiser, we played as a German artist, and the whole band played several first takes, and that was it. And it's a hit. There were many hits of that. And then, some famous artists I played with, and I remember one story we played in the famous Onkel Pö's Carnegie Hall in Hamburg. It's a club in Hamburg where all great jazz players played. And we had a session, and we made a jam session, so we jammed on Your Song of Elton John. And I played this guitar, and it reacted perfectly that night, or what I wanted to do. And when I looked around, my friend Kurt Kress was crying.
Okay.
And that was great, because he was touched by the sound of that guitar.
Yeah, oh, your sound, the sound of your hands and your guitar. Yeah.
Whatever.
But whatever,
No, it's something special, and I can't create it without it. So I can't close, but this is really something special. And we are trying hard to get there.
Great. I mean, thanks for sharing all of this with us.
And there's another funny story.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Funny story. There was one night I was called by a studio near Cologne and in the forest, and I had a gig in Munich. So I said to my roadie, when we gonna get there, I have to drive with you in the bus. And it was an old bus, and it was freezing, and we were trying to get the ice from the windows, and so when we arrived, it was a production for Jack Bruce.
Okay.
And he was very happy that I had familiar equipment. I had an old Burst, and I had a 50-watt Plexi Marshall and many other ads, but we used that one. And for me, was it like coming home and playing with my musical father or something like that, because all the riffs, he went back to Cream-like riffs and his falsetto singing. So this was, I couldn't believe it, that I was lucky to play that production. And then they said to me, okay, we need some solos. Eric Clapton will come, but we are not really sure whether he will show up. So please play the solos.
Yeah.
So then afterwards I heard from the toning that Clapton arrived and he played great solos. And then he said, but the funny thing was, when he turned up the faders, there were certain passages where we played identical. So I was so much, I learned so much from the old Cream records that when I heard that voice and these riffs, I just played the same things. It was not my solo, it was Clapton. So an interpretation of a mix of his solos, of course. And there were some parts where we played simply, he said it was like doubled. And that was this guitar.
Wow.
And yeah, that's the story of it.
Okay. Yeah, great. I mean, very impressive. We could talk for hours, I think. I would enjoy it for sure. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to do, or you at least.
Yes, we start the recording now.
Exactly. So yeah, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, take care. See you soon on this channel.
See you.